Did you know that the origins of the Catholic Church might not be exactly what you were always taught? Many people believe it all began with a man named Peter, the apostle of Jesus. But what if the truth is more complex, full of contradictions and untold details? What you're about to discover may not only reshape your understanding of religion, but of history itself. Who decided that Peter should lead the church? Was it a direct command from Jesus or a decision made by his followers after his death? Imagine this: a group of persecuted, scattered men secretly meeting, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become one of the world's most powerful institutions. How likely is it that this all began with a single moment or one person? The real story may surprise you. The Catholic Church, with over 1 billion followers today, was born in the midst of chaos and oppression. In ancient Rome, a center of political power, pagan worship, and brutal persecution, Jesus' followers faced more than just disbelief. They were hunted, marginalized, and struggling just to survive. How did such a vulnerable group eventually become the official religion of the Roman Empire? This transformation was not simply a miracle, it was a strategic, gradual evolution. Here's something you may have never heard before. The Catholic Church did not appear overnight. It wasn't created by a single divine decree. Instead, it was formed over decades, even centuries, through human choices. From secret gatherings to official councils that defined its doctrines, the church's formation was filled with debates, disagreements, and even changes to Jesus' original message. What drove these decisions? Faith, power, or a bit of both? Peter, considered the first pope, certainly played a key role, but was it his intention to found a church? The Bible tells us that Jesus said, "Yeti, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." But does this one sentence prove Peter was the founder of the church as we know it today? And what did Jesus truly mean by church? A building? A formal institution? Or something entirely different? Here's the surprising part. Nowhere in the Bible is the term Catholic Church used. In fact, the word Catholic, meaning universal, didn't appear until long after the apostles had died. It was Ignatius of Antioch around the year 107 AD who first used this term to describe the Christian community. So if the apostles themselves didn't call it the Catholic Church, who did and why? To understand this, we need to revisit the early days of Christianity. Picture a radical movement led by fishermen, tax collectors, and social outcasts. They were spreading a message that defied cultural and religious norms. The persecution they faced was relentless. Christians were executed, labeled heretics, and branded enemies of the state. So how did they go from hunted rebels to favored citizens of the empire? The turning point was the reign of Constantine the Great. In the year 313 AD, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, legalizing Christianity. But this wasn't merely a spiritual act, it was a political move. Constantine saw religion as a way to unite a fractured empire. He used Christianity not just as a personal belief, but as a strategic tool. Then came the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. This was a crucial moment. Christian leaders gathered, under Constantine's direction, to answer critical questions. Was Jesus divine, human, or both? Their decisions would shape theology and define the faith for centuries. But don't imagine this was a peaceful or clean process. There were betrayals, internal power struggles, and even violence. Many Christians who disagreed with council decisions were persecuted by fellow Christians. A once persecuted faith had now become an enforcer of its own doctrines. So we must ask how much of today's Catholicism truly reflects Jesus' original message, and how much has been shaped by politics. This is not an attack, but an invitation to reflect. Have you ever wondered why certain books are in the Bible while others were excluded? The answers may surprise you. Early Christianity wasn't one unified voice. There were many writings, dozens of Gospels, letters, and spiritual texts, each offering different views. Christian leaders had to choose which were divinely inspired and which were to be discarded. And this was not just a spiritual decision, it was an ideological battle. Groups like the Gnostics believed something entirely different. They taught that secret knowledge, not blind faith, was the path to the divine. Some even saw the God of the Old Testament as a lesser or flawed being, distinct from the loving Father Jesus preached about. If their ideas had prevailed, Christianity would look very different today. These alternative texts were mostly destroyed, labeled heresy. But in 1945, in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, many of them were rediscovered. The Gnostic Gospels revealed a rich diversity of thought in early Christianity, one that was nearly erased from history. Even Peter's role as the first pope is debated. Yes, he was important, but in the book of Acts, he is never portrayed as the sole leader. In fact, James, the brother of Jesus, appears to have held greater authority in some early Christian communities. So, why does Catholic tradition place Peter at the center? Because over time, theological interpretation and institutional tradition shaped that belief. It's possible that one of the church's key foundations is more based on evolving ideas than historical fact. And what about Rome? Why did it become the center of Christianity? Jesus lived and died in Jerusalem, yet the church was headquartered in Rome. The reason lies in political symbolism. Rome was the heart of the empire. By setting up base there, the church gained both spiritual weight and imperial legitimacy. But again, this wasn't without chaos. There were even periods when multiple individuals claimed to be the true pope, leading to the Western Schism. Up to 3 men declared themselves as the legitimate head of the church. How do we reconcile this with Jesus' teachings on humility and service? And Constantine himself, though he legalized Christianity, he continued to practice pagan rituals for most of his life. He was only baptized on his deathbed, leaving many to wonder, was his conversion genuine or purely political? So who really created the Catholic Church? Peter and the apostles may have planted the seed, but it was councils, emperors, and generations of leaders who shaped it into what it is today. This long process, marked by struggle and compromise, doesn't lessen the church's influence, but it does reveal its human side. In the end, the Catholic Church is not simply the result of divine will. It is the product of centuries of faith, ambition, conflict, and growth. It reminds us that even the greatest institutions are born from the hopes, flaws, and choices of human beings, just like us. So what do you believe now? Is the church more divine, more human, or something in between?